Welcome to the Leadership in Law podcast with host Marilyn Jenkins. Cut through the noise, get actionable insights and inspiring stories delivered straight to your ears. Your ultimate podcast for navigating the ever-changing world of law firm ownership. In each episode, we dive deep into the critical topics that matter most to you, from unlocking explosive growth to building a thriving team. We connect you with successful firm leaders and industry experts who share their proven strategies and hard-won wisdom. So, whether you're a seasoned leader or just starting your journey as a law firm owner, the Leadership in Law podcast is here to equip you with the knowledge and tools you need to build a successful and fulfilling legal practice.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership in Law podcast. I'm your host, Marilyn Jenkins. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Elise Buie, to the show today. Elise is a Seattle-based family and divorce lawyer and founder of the Elise Buie Family Law Group. A champion for maintaining civility through the divorce process, Elise advocates for our clients in the best interest of their children, helping them move forward with dignity from a position of strength. I'm excited to have you here, Elise. Welcome.
Thanks. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm excited to hear you tell us about your leadership journey.
Oh, probably don't have enough time for all the gory details.
Let's do some highlights, and then I've got some other questions to ask you.
Okay, so highlights. I mean, I would say that from a leadership standpoint, and I have had leadership as kind of my main focus for probably about 8 years, like very intentionally, because I learned very early on that, though I might have thought I had leadership abilities and, some natural tendencies towards leadership, boy, did I have a lot to learn about, leading an entire team of super diverse professionals and all the different things, as compared to you think of some of the leadership things that I think many of us end up doing, whether it's just being the leader of your family, maybe, or leading various organizations where people have come together around a common issue or mission. Like, maybe you're the leader of your kids' swimming team or the soccer team or something, where there's things you do. Whereas in a business, it has been such an interesting thing because not only are you leading people and often from very diverse backgrounds, and they might actually have very diverse, interests and opinions and their own mission, but also then, it's a for-profit operation. So you have to look at leadership ROI, when you're leading maybe a volunteer organization and you're all raising money for the neighborhood playground, you can have a bunch of dead weight and that they were volunteering already. You know what I mean? Like it's not
No big loss.
Yeah. And so it has been kind of a wild journey. And I think much of my journey has been spent with a mirror on me, like, okay, Elise, what are you doing wrong here? Like what do you need to learn? And it has been a lot of introspection, coaching, working on myself and getting my own ego out of all things,
Wow.
just really focusing on what's right for the firm, what's right for my team, how do I bring my best self every day, even when maybe I don't feel like my best self, Um,
Exactly.
yeah, so I think it's been kind of a wild journey. I mean, it's been the most raw kind of open yourself up journey that I've ever had. And I thought raising a huge brood of kids did pretty good. And I would say like it's been, even a deeper journey, which is self-introspection.
Very interesting. And you feel like your biggest leadership role has only been over the last 8 years. So then let's look back at the beginning of your career. Were you a solo and then you grew into a larger firm when you got to Seattle?
Well, what happened is, I, got out of law school, I clerked, then I went in a bigger firm. I was from New Orleans and so lived in New Orleans, worked for a pretty big firm. and then quit my job to stay home and just take care of my kids. I actually homeschooled my children and, took care of my kids for a long time. And in there, Hurricane Katrina hit. So, off we had to go on our little journey of moving all across the country multiple times. So then I ended up in Seattle and, it was time for me to get back to work and really, dig in. I now had kids that were getting older and college was looming a few years off from my oldest. And so I went back to work here in Seattle. I started in a very small firm here in Seattle, and then I went out great as soon as I, got licensed here. I had to take the bar exam. I had to take 3 bar exams in my little journeys across the country. So once I started my firm here, which was in 2015, so 10 years ago, I think I initially just thought, oh, it can't be that complicated to run an office. This lady I just worked with, she didn't run an office. It can't be that complicated. And, you know, obviously there's a lot to learn in running an office. And so I think I came to the conclusion fairly quickly in my journey based on a lot of the people I worked with in my consultant role, because a lot of people I think don't understand how all problems tie back to the leader. I mean, like every single one of them, you can get out
Well,
that.
what's the old saying? The buck stops here.
I mean, and boy, is it true. And, until you can kind of wrap your head around that and stop like pointing your finger out the window at other people and being like, oh, well, this person doesn't do this. And it's like, yeah, no, this has to do with you. But what systems do you have in place? What's your accountability structure? How do you measure ROI? Do you talk about it? Is it transparent? Are you looking at it consistently? Are you having those tough conversations with people when they're not hitting their ROI? And what is the follow-up to said tough conversation, And so I think once you accept that every single problem in your firm is related to your leadership, then, you then start realizing like you can have every tactic in the book, you can bring on the best talent, you can do all of the things, but if you're not at the top of your game as a leader, your firm is going to.
I love that. Yeah, so you can have all the systems in place, but you got to have the person at the head that takes care of everything, and you've got KPIs and that sort of thing, and the check-ins. Are you using a specific type of system for your organization, like the EOS, or any specific type of system for your firm?
We do EOS, and we've been doing that since about 2021. And I wouldn't say we are like EOS purists in any way, in the sense of that we do it perfectly. But I mean, from, our leadership uses EOS, different teams, marketing, client relations, the legal teams, we all run L10 meetings, and we do not have rocks for all the people. Like, I don't give my billing engine rocks to do. We have a large enough firm with enough administrative support that we can really allow the billing engine to focus solely on that, not on other things. And so, that's not EOS pure, but we do very much appreciate the EOS system. And I really, not only did I read Traction, but I have to tell you, Traction was pretty dry and I didn't look like, really an easy read. And I became an EOS advocate through Fireproof, Mike Morse and John Nottingham's book Fireproof. And I read that in one sitting, literally called Mike the next day and was like, okay, I understand this. Like, I got it.
Yeah.
So started working the Fireproof. I was one of the very first clients in their, coaching side of the house. And really understood the data, how we needed to get the data and run at using data, using numbers, and really being able to all paddle in the same direction. And that has been, a huge thing. And obviously we've evolved, since 2021. But it's been EOS definitely serves as a major fundamental thing that we use to move.
Excellent. Yeah, and we have an EOS representative at one of the masterminds I'm in, and I find it very interesting. And you're right, the Traction book is It's it's a desert dream. It is.
Oh, yeah.
But sitting through the mastermind, the webinars that Lynn presents to us makes so much more sense. But yes,
Oh, yeah.
agree. Let someone else explain it and walk you through it. That's the way to go.
Absolutely. Delegate your learnings.
Absolutely, absolutely. Delegation is the thing. So when you look at your structure, and I know that leadership and ROI is huge for you and building that strong firm culture. It was EOS instrumental to that. Did that help you with your management style, or how was that?
Oh, I would say absolutely. I mean, one, just having that dashboard of data, so knowing what all the numbers were. And we had an interesting evolution because, we work, like I said, with Fireproof, which is mostly focused on personal injury firms. And like I said, we were one of their first firms, so we were hourly. So they struggled with getting a dashboard that could work for us from an hourly billable structure. And I always had this just inkling, like I would run forecasts and all this stuff. And the numbers were supposed to be and what they were, there was always this delta. And I would struggle with trying to figure out what it was because I would look at individual billing and I'm like, well, they did their billing. But come to understand, we did a major deep dive and realized that there is this delta in almost every billing firm I work. Everybody has it, where they'll say, "Oh, you're supposed to bill, 1,300 hours a year." And so the attorney will put in 1,300 hours a year, but they will do things like discount their time here and there, or they will write off time. So when it all was said and done, maybe 1,000 hours, maybe 1,100 was actually getting put to an invoice and thus
Oh,
collected. So I created this thing. I call it build on invoice. I mean, it's as dumb and straightforward as can be, but it literally was. And I mean, I explained to my team, I'm like, a build hour is an hour of your normal hourly rate that is actually going on an invoice. And I look at the collection side of things as my issue. It's an admin firm management issue. So I don't hold anyone in my team to a collection standard, but I do hold them to a build on invoice standard. And so that has, I mean, we had about an $800,000 bucket from what's actually, billed, but then versus what actually got billed on invoice. And so now that we have really understand that, we turned it around and, still track it. I mean, because it's part of our life work integration that if I see my billing engine doing work that is not able to be put on an invoice, I'm asking myself, like, what is wrong here? Like, why aren't they delegating this? Like, who could be supporting them in this? And why is this on their plate? Because that doesn't make any sense. So we have a very strong analytical look at the firm so that we can be making sure that the right work is in with the right people and that we are not burning people out, that people are doing the work that is in their lane and in their lane only, and that the KPIs that they have are 100% within their control. There's no like mystery around that. And I think that has helped us immensely.
excellent. Yeah, I think making sure you have the right butts in the right seats and that people enjoy doing those types of things. And that helps too when we talk about building your strong company culture and the firm culture that you have that allows you to travel without getting into a lot of stress. So your firm continues to grow while you're away.
Oh, absolutely. I think for me, that has been having strong leaders on the leadership team who have a mindset of our entire firm is about developing leaders. So, like, I want to develop my leadership team to be amazing leaders. I want the leadership team to develop the people that are working with them to be good leaders. I want, the heads of every legal pod to be developing the people in the legal pod to be good leaders so that they're leading our clients. I want to develop our clients into good leaders so that they are leading their families successfully and they can come through a divorce successfully, holding up their mirrors and understanding like what can they do to improve their family situation.
I love that. So it trickles all the way down.
Yeah, that's our goal, is that we are, maximizing everyone we come in contact. I mean, I have this kind of weird thought that, I mean, children are truly the victims and the only victims really of divorce, and I want children to be put in the best situation possible. And so in my mind, if their parents are, trying to do the right thing and really thinking about how can they lead their children through this experience in a way that is going to be more transformational than traumatic, like that is going to be very, very important to the children's psychological well-being long term.
And other than being an attorney, you're a mediator to help with that. So you and your team have the strengths and the talents to help any type of divorce to make it a smooth transition. Is that right?
We do not do mediation. I mean, I am
Okay.
trained as a mediator myself, but I do not do mediation like professionally, and we don't currently have a mediator on our team. We'll refer people to, mediators, and in our state, mediation, at least in our main county, mediation is mandatory in all but a very few circumstances. So, we have an exceedingly robust mediation community just because it is such an important part of the process here. But I think that one of the things that sets us apart, and kind of I think of it as like our unique value proposition, is we hire people for their emotional intelligence. Like, one of the things we really focus on in our hiring is bringing on people who are, positive, who have a growth mindset, who are really lifelong learners, and who are solid enough in their own selves, they can accept and give feedback super successfully. I mean, we are such a firm that believes in direct, compassionate feedback regularly so we can learn and iterate and improve, and not be stuck in some old way where, we're doing something. And I think for me, that has been such an important part of things, hiring people who are willing, able, and just successfully push back on me and can tell me that, like, Elise, no, we're not doing, you know, whatever. And they know that that's a safe place, that they can push back on me and we can engage in dialogue and disagreement about things. And that is going to be fine. We really encourage differences and, bringing in differences of opinions, skills, information, because that is what I think makes us all better.
And communication.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So do you use a specific assessment tool to help you find the right person or that type of person? Or is it something that you built into your interview structure?
Yeah, I mean, this is ever evolving, ever evolving. But we use the FOO process generally for hiring. And so that is kind of a very specific process of, the structured interviews and who's in the interviews and what questions are being asked and, a scorecard. Then we also do assessments. I mean, we have done a variety of assessments depending on the position. We always do a Clifton strength. So no matter what position it is, we do a Clifton strength finder. I'm a huge fan. And I love certain strengths, like in our top 10, because obviously over those years, I've been able to analyze the patterns of both our good hires and our bad hires. And so we have analyzed, some hires that, really were not a cultural fit, weren't aligned, and been able to look at what were their strengths, what did their Clifton strength finders look like. And we've been able to see patterns, which has been very helpful. Obviously, it's not definitive, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't put it up in court of law and some evidence-based anything, but do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
we can see patterns and we can understand a little bit more about people. But I mean, cultural alignment is head and shoulders to us.
Right.
And, like, we might get a candidate that just absolutely hits all the boxes, skill, clinical thing, not culturally aligned. And I mean, that person is going to get, knocked out of the the pipeline immediately.
I love that. So that you can see that. And then, because we weren't, like you said, a team that can help nurture all your customers, your clients and their families and make everything a success. I love that. So when you're, the other thing that I know that you really pride your firm in is unreasonable hospitality.
Yeah, we do. We do. I love unreasonable hospitality so much. I'm from New Orleans originally, so grew up in New Orleans. And I did not realize just how weird that makes you until Katrina and until we started moving. And so initially we went to Georgia for a year, then Minnesota, then out here to Seattle. So in Minnesota, it became very obvious to me because everyone talks about Minnesota nice, and but they don't really mean it. They mean it's like Minnesota nice, but kind of cold. But it's this weird
Oh,
dynamic. So when I was in Minnesota, you do simple like day-to-day things. You're hopping on an elevator, and I worked in the courts. And so I'd ride up, 30 floors in Hennepin County courthouse, and nobody talks to each other. And I was like, this is so unusual. Because in New Orleans, you cannot get in an elevator. I mean, you could be going one floor and you could be in the criminal court elevator and you're still chit-chatting away, in the
at
elevator.
least saying hello. I grew up in the South as well. There is a real thing of Southern hospitality.
Oh, I mean, in New Orleans, we do not just say hello. We are sharing recipes. We are chatting about, what our grandma did that night. Like it is literally this whole just culture of very just easy communication. So when I was in Minnesota and nobody was chatting, I mean, one day I just started chatting because I'm like, do we literally all just stare at this number? Like, this is what we're going to do. So, it became this thing where, I really brought out a lot of communication in the courthouse elevators. And people were like, gosh, this is so different. Now we get in, we chat. And then when I moved to Minnesota, to Seattle, it was the exact same thing. I was back to silent elevators. And I'm like, guys, you have got to work with me here. I mean, I cannot stare at the number. Like it literally feels so dumb. We all know what the numbers, what they look like, what's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just not very interesting.
Yeah,
So
we know the end story. We know where we're going.
no. And so I think that I have just felt literally since I moved away from New Orleans, just a little off. Like I have just been like, I am not with my people in this way. And so last year we went to New Orleans for Mardi Gras, my husband and I, and two of our young adult children. And we went there. And I mean, within 48 hours, I was like, oh, I'm like, this is the problem. Like, this is it. I was like, notice all the people chatting with you in the grocery store line, like in the elevator. And obviously my husband and I had traveled to New Orleans a bunch over the years. Like he has to go there for work. We've had, family and friends there, but it was so deeply apparent. And I was like, aha. And I'm like, this is the thing. It is this hospitality that is the missing link to all things. And when I read Will's book, Unreasonable Hospitality, I was just like, oh my gosh, this man has written a book just for me. And I'm like, he didn't name it the Elise Buie, like pretty happy. But that is how I feel. And I think so realizing that it is just who I am, I have been able to bring that to our firm in a way where it just allows me to be my regular self in this way. And it has been so fun to watch people in my firm really embrace unreasonable hospitality. And I mean, we have a person in our firm whose whole job is the unreasonable hospitality coordinator. Like and I mean, we run unreasonable hospitality summits. We think about how we can do it better. We have everybody in our office has KPIs around unreasonable hospitality because we're trying to encourage, that type of behavior and just like day to day, just aura. Like, how can you think about how do you look at every problem in your firm through a lens of unreasonable hospitality? And it just brings me joy. And so, if I'm going to do this entrepreneurial gig, like I should be joyful. And so unreasonable hospitality brings me a ton of joy. And I think that, I mean, really, and though, I didn't start it with this in mind, it is the thing that is never going to be replaced by AI.
That's true.
You
Now, one quick question on the hospitality side, and I got this idea from another person I interviewed. Do you have your people score each other, like secret score?
No.
So it was the kind of story is like, okay, once a week you or whatever, you can have someone vote. So say I saw you do something that I thought was really, the example was within the corporate goal, the corporate mission, at least did this that was so totally on mission. I want to give her the kudo, right? So same kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
at the meetings, at the team meetings, it'd be like, at least got 10 kudos this week. Just this, and helps everybody a little pat on the back, and just builds that whole team spirit up within the same type thing. I love that. That was such a good idea.
Well, and we do something similar. We have what's called a celebration channel in our Slack community, and people utilize that. So every day somebody is calling out somebody for doing something great, and it
Awesome.
generally is related to either team unreasonable hospitality or client unreasonable hospitality, and I do think that is so important to encourage that type of camaraderie and where we're looking for each other to do good. Kind of like, as a parent, sometimes parents spend all their time looking for their child to mess up when really the parenting win is looking for your child to do great and actually notice it and call it out and, reinforce that, because that is what will drive a child to just be their very best self, is that. And I think that we see that just in humans in general. I mean, I have a friend out here in Washington who wrote a book, Don't Do Stuff You Suck At. And I'm like, absolutely. You know, Sometimes people spend all their energy on that 20% that they don't do well. And it's like, yeah, no, lose that 20%. Forget about it. Delegate it, do the other stuff you do great at.
I agree. And I believe study after study has shown that job satisfaction, those kudos are what going to keep people to stay with you a lot more than money in many instances. So that's an interesting. Yeah, I love that.
Trying to find what motivates each individual team member, I think, has been one of our, I mean, I don't mean to say a problem, but I mean, it's one of the things that we're constantly digging into, figuring out, because, we'll put up some type of bonus structure or KPIs in there sometimes where everybody is hitting it. And I'm like, yay. And then you'll change something and like half the people are hitting it. And you're like, well, this was a bad quarter for them? Was it not motivational? So then, we're having lots of conversations with people trying to understand all those things, because I'm a firm believer in nuance, which I know goes against the idea of scaling, because, in scaling, kind of everything needs to be the same. And in my world, scaling means I've got to meet each of my team members where they are.
Right.
So, nuance to me wins the day, not just uniform things across the way, because not everybody is motivated the same.
True. And do you find the big changes happen whenever there's a transition, or is it just you've just changed the type of bonus structure and then it's just something that doesn't resonate with some of the people?
Yeah, I think for us, it's mostly, the KPIs where maybe somebody will be like, well, tracking that KPI was hard. So, I didn't want to do it. Like it was just too much. And I'm thinking, you're giving up 10% bonus to track something. I'm like, girl, let me give you somebody to delegate that to, because I want you to get your 10% bonus. And so, but again, having those conversations and understanding what are people's barriers, like, because I mean, I do think that is one of the main roles of a leader, is removing barriers for your people, and helping them get to where they need to go. And if there's barriers in the way, we want to be the first to know, and then we want to be able to get rid of those.
Excellent. So I want to touch a little bit on how you use AI in your firm.
Oh, sure. I mean, I would say that, we are definitely not, the most cutting edge AI people, but I mean, we are definitely using it, have been using it for years and are still, using more and more. I mean, we have brought it in just firm wide. A few years ago, when things were less secure, I think, than they are now, we got our own kind of, personal AI. So we were working, with a developer so that, none of our things were being used in the larger models, to train on things. And we still have that, but we find that there's been some limitations. And so now we're looking at different things where we are incorporating AI into certain other workflows we use, like, a lot of our tech, like HubSpot, Clio, Zapier. There's a lot of, integrated AI where we can use, even Slack, has its own AI in.
Yeah.
But I mean, I personally am a huge fan of AI from a strategic partner kind of stand, really using AI to help me think through thorny things and push back on me, and really I've tried to get better and better at, how to utilize prompts in ways that, I'm not training the AI up to just agree with me. If anything, I train the AI up to disagree.
Yes. Well, we actually made a Slack channel for our team of AI prompts that you're getting good results from. So we share, and the prompt has to stay in the thread if you change it or you work with it, so you never lose that. But absolutely. And the other thing, one step further, is I set up 2 advisory boards as we have conversations with. One is like a board of directors, and one is on sales. So
I love that.
do that. Yeah. So you can choose like your top 10 people that you want to be on your board of directors from any talent, right? And then you ask them, part of the prompt is, I'm not the golden child. Not everything I say is true. You gotta, really also need to come back with a reason why, tell a story, anecdote, whatever, with your opinion. So it really causes some really interesting conversations.
Oh, absolutely. I love that so much. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, it was not my original idea, but I do enjoy the results of it. But this has been an absolute wonderful conversation. I enjoy hearing the story, and I'm sure our audience may want to connect with you and chat with you about your journey and your leadership, what you're doing in your firm. How is it best to reach out to you or connect with you?
Probably just through my email, Elise B at Elise Buie Family Law. Maybe we can just put that in the show notes or something. My email address. That'd be awesome.
We'll make sure that's in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Elise. This has been a really lovely conversation. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you inviting me, and thank you for having me. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining me today for this episode. As we wrap up, I'd love for you to do 2 things. First, subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss an episode. And if you find value here, I'd love it if you would rate it and review it. That really does make a difference in helping other people to discover this podcast. Second, you can connect with me on LinkedIn to keep up with what I'm currently learning and thinking about. And if you're ready to take the next step with a digital strategist to help you grow your law firm, I'd be honored to help you. Just go to lawmarketingzone.com to book a call with me. Stay tuned for our next episode next week. Until then, as always, thanks for listening to Leadership and Law Podcast, and be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss the next episode.
Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Leadership and Law Podcast. Remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a whole community of law firm owners out there facing similar challenges and striving for the same success. Head over to our website at lawmarketingzone.com. From there, connect with other listeners, access valuable resources, and stay up to date on the latest episodes. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, keep leading with vision and keep growing your firm.